All right, gang, let's get started. That was great. Russ, thank you for playing that. That's some great music. I got some great things written down here in my journal. So, let me just start by saying this, and I want you to write this statement down. The difference between success and failure is focus. Let me say that again. The difference between success and failure is focus. It's a very simple statement, but it's a very powerful statement because it's the truth. The difference between those who are highly successful and those who lead ordinary, forgettable lives is simply the focus in their lives, the things that they focus on, the principles, the standards, the philosophies, the things that they focus on a daily basis. And as a result, affects what it is that they do on a daily basis. The difference between success and failure is focus. And here's the cool thing about it. It is simply a choice. So really what that means is that success is a choice. You can choose to be successful. And if you choose to be successful, meaning you choose to focus on the right things, it's inevitable. You will be successful. It's a guarantee, I promise you. But if you choose to focus on the wrong things, then you'll be what most people are, which is average, because they tend to focus on things that they have no control over. I want you to think about this for a second. If focus is a choice, we have a choice every day to focus on the pandemic, to focus on politics, to focus on the economy, to focus on the nightly news. And I say nightly news, but really it's 24/7 because you can get it on your phone 24/7 from countless news outlets. And what are they talking about? Are they talking about inspiration, motivation, building yourself up, the possibilities in the world, all the great things that are going on in the world? And the answer to that, of course, is no. And how much of that are you focusing on 24/7? It's like a smorgasbord of garbage, right? We have the choice to focus on that, or we can focus on the things that we actually control. Because you think about it, you don't control the pandemic, you don't control politics, you don't control the economy, you don't control any of those issues that the nightly news or the morning news or the midday news or the anytime in between news talks about. But what you do have control over is going to be your relationships, your relationship with yourself, with your creator, with your intimate other, with your children, your grandchildren, your closest relatives, your friends, your coworkers, the people in your lives, your health, your mental, your physical, your emotional, and your business and your finances. See, those things you have direct control over, and you have the ability to choose to focus on those things versus those other things, those external forces. So again, I go back to this statement. The difference between success and failure is simply focus. So the conversation this morning that I want to have with you is really about making certain that we all begin to focus on the right things, especially right now. It is critical for our success in 2021, to focus on the right things. Our success in 2021 is going to hinge on what we focus on. So I want you to write this statement down before we get into the gist of my message. I want you to write this down. I will commit to focusing on the things that actually matter. I mean it. Take the time to write that down. I will commit to focusing on the things that actually matter. See, if you'll commit to doing that, of focusing on your relationships, on your health, on your business, on the things that actually matter, you can live the life that you say that you want to live. You can live the extraordinary life. So how do we do that? How do we commit to focusing on the things that actually matter? Well, I believe that the thinking process, guys and gals, begins by asking ourselves great questions. So I'm going to give you a series of questions that I want you to write down. And I want you to, not in this conversation today, but sometime today, this weekend, as soon as possible, to begin to answer these questions. Because I believe that in order to progress, we have to think. We have to think about the things that actually matter and begin to make the changes that are necessary to live a different life. I think it was Einstein who said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. This is about redirecting our focus from the things that don't matter to the things that do. So thinking starts by asking great questions. So let me ask this first question of you. Question number one. What have I learned in 2020? And I want you to write it in first person. So I'm going to say it in first person. I want you to write it in first person because you're asking yourself these questions. What have I learned in 2020? See, as Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. What is it that you've learned? Take the time to ask that question, because undoubtedly you've learned things, not only in the business, but personally. This experience that we've had, I mean, talk about, it's like a weird science experience, right? This year called 2020, we've all learned things, not only about the world, but about ourselves, right? And what we're capable of doing despite all of these crazy external forces. So what have you learned? Take the time to acknowledge what it is that you've learned. Because see, if we don't acknowledge what it was that happened to us and how we responded, whether we responded in a positive way or a negative way, we're going to miss the opportunity to learn from those experiences. So really take the time to examine, okay, what was my experience this year and what did I learn from it, so that I can take those golden nuggets, those experiences, right, and use those, apply those moving forward, so that I either don't make the same mistakes or that I do the same thing that allowed me to triumph despite all those ridiculous external forces. So question number one again is, what have I learned in 2020? The second question is this: what in my life am I no longer willing to accept? I want you to think about that. See, now is the time, especially, you think about it. As we come into the holidays, people are always thinking about, okay, the new year. And the new year brings about this feeling of, okay, I want to start anew, brand new. I want to create some sort of resolution. I've got a goal, right? Now is the time that people are doing that. The crazy thing is that over 60% of people will set a New Year's resolution, and only 18% of those resolutions are actually accomplished. And most people, the people who set the resolutions, by mid-February have given up on their resolution. It's crazy. So I want you to consciously, instead of just at a whim trying to pull something out of the air last minute on New Year's night, say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. No, I want you to think about it. I want you to give it forethought. I want it to really matter. What is it in my life that I am no longer willing to accept? And maybe it's not one thing, maybe it's many things. But ask yourself that question. Take the time to ask, what is it in my life I'm no longer willing to accept? I mean, at what point are you going to say enough is enough? Is it a relationship? Is it your health? Is it your finances? Is it your business? What is it? What are you no longer willing to accept? And then the third question is this: what's important about money to me? What's important about money to me? Let me just say this regarding this particular question. I believe that there's a fundamental difference between the way people who are rich, both monetarily as well of mind, and those who are poor, lacking money, and also poor in terms of the way that they think. Fundamentally, I believe that people who are rich assign a better meaning to money than do poor people. Well, John, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is this: that I believe that those who are poor, or just living paycheck to paycheck, just struggling to get by, look at money as a way to just simply survive. Money is a way to survive. That is a poor mentality when it comes to money. And then the rich, the wealthy, they look at it not as a way to survive. It is much more than that. Money is freedom. Money is the ability to go out and to live in an amazing, superb life. And I'm not talking about just having nice houses and cars and boats and planes. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ability to get outside of yourself, to stop focusing on your own survival and having the ability to focus on other people and making a difference. You know, one of my favorite examples of that historically is Andrew Carnegie. There are very few people in this world who grew up poorer than Andrew Carnegie. He grew up in a one room shack in Scotland that had dirt floors. And he lived in that until the age of 12, when his family immigrated to the United States. And when he came to the United States and he saw the abundance and what was possible, and this was in the 60s probably, he looked at what was possible and he said, man, I want to do something. I want to create the world's greatest fortune and then give it all away. And that's exactly what Andrew Carnegie did. He amassed a fortune that was $340 billion in today's dollars, and he gave it all away. See, what he did is he elevated his existence, his focus from his self to other people. So I ask you this question: what's important to you about money? How do you look at money? What meaning do you assign to money? Is money just simply a way to pay the bills, to just get by, to just survive? Or is it a way for you to have unbridled freedom, to go out and to do what really the good book says, is to not only be fruitful, or not to only multiply, but to be fruitful? In other words, to go out there and create more than what you need for yourself so that you can go out and give to others. Einstein was asked this question. He was asked the question many times, and I think the reason he was asked this question because he was considered, and maybe still considered, the most brilliant human being ever to live. And people were curious. This scientist, he was all about science and the scientific method and facts. And he was asked if he believed in God, and his answer effectively was, well, I don't believe in a personal God, but I certainly believe in a creator, in some sort of intelligent being that designed all of this. How could it not have happened that way? But he was asked the question, what's the purpose of life? And his response was basically this: man's purpose, and when I say man, the idiomatic man, meaning man, woman, us, people, our responsibility, the purpose of our life, is to contribute to the lives of other people. We're here to serve other people. See, I believe that if you take a look at the Andrew Carnegies, you look at the John D. Rockefellers, you look at Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, you look at Oprah Winfrey, you look at what these people do with their wealth and how they give it away. See, what's important to you about money? Do you assign the right meaning to it? Do you move beyond just survival to abundance, to give yourself the opportunity to live what I believe is the reason we're here on this planet, which is to serve other people to a very high level? Question number 4. What's important about my health? What's important about your health? I want you to just think about this. The good book says that without a vision, the people will perish. What is your vision for your health? What would you like to see? Would you like to lose some weight? Would you like to gain some lean muscle mass? Would you like to reduce your cholesterol? Would you like to reduce your blood pressure? Would you like to run a marathon? What would you like to do? What's important to you about your health? Look, the best life is a life that is designed. Live a life that is designed. See, the average person doesn't do that. As I said, the average person will simply go through the motions, just simply trying to survive, never getting out of the rut. Because the average person never sits down to ask these questions, to have this critical conversation with themselves. So I would ask you, what's important to you about your health? What vision do you have? How do you see yourself in the future in terms of your health? One of the goals that I have is to live to at least 102. I want to live to be at least 102 and be healthy and to be active. And that the day that I die, that I am active. I am out doing something active, right? That is my goal. That's what I envision. So on a daily basis now, even at the age of 51, my focus is on achieving that goal. And so on a daily basis, I choose things that are consistent with achieving that goal. So I ask you again, what's important to you about your health? What vision do you have of your future self when it comes to health? Question number 5. What type of intimate relationship do I want? See, for many of you, you're already in a relationship, an intimate relationship. But my question for you is, what do you want that to look like? Is there room for improvement? Could it be improved? What do you want it to look like? And if you're not in one, then examine that. Ask yourself, what do I want it to look like? See, you can't achieve what you don't focus on. I believe that if you can conceive it, you'll achieve it. But you first of all have to conceive it. Conceive what you want that relationship to look like. Begin to create in your mind what that person looks like, how they behave, the things that you want them to be interested in, the type of person that you want them to be. Because I believe that once we create a vision in our mind, that our mind has a tendency to seek it out. It does. And we've all had that experience. So what type of intimate relationship do you want? And then question number 6 is this: how will I know my life is fulfilling? Man, I think that is a very critical question. How will I know that my life is fulfilling? Gang, whether we want to admit it or not, there are a lot of people who go through life and at the end of their days, they look back and they have significant regrets. I want to ask you this question, and I mean this sincerely. If your life ended today, would you say that you lived a fulfilling life? Was it exactly what you wanted it to be? Was it fulfilling? Did all of your deepest desires, your hopes, the dreams that you had, did you fulfill those? And of course, if the answer is no, then I ask you, in fact, I implore you, I demand of you, answer that question. How will I know that I lived a fulfilling life? See, the thing that I am probably most afraid of is to get to the end of my life and look back and say, I regretted not doing, or not trying, or not being, fill in the blank. So how will you know that your life is fulfilling? Are you clear about the things that are important to you in your life and working towards achieving those things so that you can say that every day you're living a life on purpose, by design, that you're doing what it is that you want to do because you're creating the life that you have envisioned, that you've designed, that you know that at the end of your days, you look back and you say, I left nothing on the field. It was there. I did it. I did my best and I tried. And whether you achieve everything or not is not important. The question is, did you focus on it and did you try? Did you live a fulfilling life? And then question number 7, what gives my life purpose? I think that question is probably the most critical question of the questions that I've given you. What gives my life purpose? See, I believe that there are only 2 emotions that control people on a daily basis. It's fear or love. And every moment of every day, in every action that we take, especially the greater the stakes, the bigger the decision, the greater this question becomes. Are we going to be controlled by our fear, or are we going to be controlled by love? Now, let me ask you this question, and I think you all know the answer. Which emotion do you think most people are controlled by most often? Fear or love? Just think about in our business. You think about the average agent. You think about the fact that they make $55,000 a year, which coincidentally, in the United States, the poverty level for a family of 4 is about $55,000. So you think about the average agent living that life. Do you honestly think that they live a life of love, of purpose, of passion as it relates to real estate? And the answer, of course, is no. No. Because what we know is if somebody's making that amount of money in real estate, they're probably not, save many factors like, look, they're brand new in the business, right? Haven't been doing it long, right? But if you've been in the business a long time and you want to earn more than that, my suspicion is that there's a reluctance to actually do the job, to go out and speak to people. They're fearful of reaching out and communicating with other human beings. In other words, they're letting fear control their decisions as opposed to love, passion. So my question for you is, what gives your life purpose? See, I believe in order to become extraordinary, to become somebody who is not average, but to live an extraordinary life, we have to be people who are driven by purpose, by passion. You can't find one person in history who accomplished anything of significance that you could say legitimately they weren't passionate. In fact, that is the defining characteristic of people who do amazing things. They are passionate. I mean, let me just throw some names out to you. John F. Kennedy, do you think he was passionate? Abraham Lincoln, do you think he was passionate? Martin Luther King, do you think he was passionate? One of my favorite examples, Nelson Mandela, do you think he was passionate? This man spent 27 years in prison over a principle, the principle of freedom, of equality, of desegregation in South Africa. He spent 27 years in prison. what was interesting is I want to share this story with you because I think it's important, because I want us to recognize that if we have some purpose or passion, something that we're willing to fight for. Look, the good news is this, that you and I, in order to be successful in this life, especially in this country, we don't have to stand on principle and therefore under threat, either step away from those principles or go to prison, right? We're not in danger of doing that. I just want you to think about the level of commitment that a man like Nelson Mandela had to be in prison for 27 years over the principle of freedom and of equality. And he went into 1963. In 1985, he was approached by the president of South Africa at the time, P.W. Botha. And P.W. Botha said to him, if you will renounce the abolition of apartheid, in other words, stop talking about desegregation and equality and just go about and live your life, then we'll let you out of prison. Well, Nelson Mandela didn't respond immediately, but he wrote a letter. And I'm not going to read the entire letter, but I want to read at least a portion of the letter to you, because this is critical, guys and gals. Everything that we've talked about up to this point means nothing until we figure this particular thing out. What is our purpose? What is our passion? Because here's what I know, that whatever your goal is in life, whether it's with your relationships, it's with your health, or it's in business, if they're significant goals, if they're worthwhile, they're going to require a lot of hard work, a lot of disappointment, a lot of struggle on your part. And if the pain associated with all of that is greater than the payoff that you see in the future, in other words, your purpose and your passion, you won't do it. You just simply won't. What you'll do is you'll default back to what the average person does and just simply survive. And then look at the external forces and say, it's because of those things that I'm not successful. That's not you. So I want to read this to you, just in part, the letter, his response, quite frankly, to the world. This is what he said. I cherish my own freedom dearly, but I care even more for your freedom. Too many have died since I went to prison. Too many have suffered for the love of freedom. I owe it to their widows, to their orphans, to their mothers and their fathers, who have grieved and wept them. Not only have I suffered during these long, lonely, wasted years, I'm not less life-loving than you are. But I cannot sell my birthright of the people to be free. Only free men can negotiate. Prisoners enter into no contracts. I cannot and will not give any undertaking at a time when I and you, the people, are not free. That was in 1985. Now, he didn't know that 5 years later, he was going to be let out of prison because apartheid basically collapsed, the segregation of the races and discrimination in South Africa. He wrote those bold statements after 22 years in prison and said, nope, you're offering me freedom, but you're really not. My principles, my standards tell me that there's to be real freedom, that every man is free, that everyone is free, that there is no segregation, that there is no discrimination supported by the government. And until that's no longer the case, you can keep me imprisoned because I am standing up against that. And for 5 more years, he remained in prison. Now, as I said, the good news is that none of us have to make that sort of sacrifice. Our sacrifice is really, in comparison, pale in comparison to the sacrifice that he had to make based upon his purpose in life. So I ask you this question again. What gives your life purpose? Take the time, especially now, as you work to create a plan and a focus for what you want to accomplish, not just in business, but in your entire life, with your relationships, with your health, and with your business. What is your purpose? What is your passion? And make certain that, look, real estate itself, the helping people buy and sell real estate, that's not my passion. It never was. But I made certain that I tied my passions in life to real estate, to my career in real estate, so that as I went out and I helped people, which I love to do, I love to help people buy and sell real estate, right? It's one of the reasons I chose to get into the business. But as I go out and I do my job every day, what I recognize is that doing my job in the business allows me to live the life that I want, to achieve my purpose, to achieve that goal, to live my passions. So if real estate itself, the day-to-day is not your passion, that's fine. But connect that, knowing that if you do your job exceptionally well in real estate, it will unlock the door to living your passions, to doing the things that ultimately that you want your life to be about. And then the last question, because I said to you that there are 8 questions. The last question is this: how will I know that I am on track? How will you know? How will you know? So I believe the best way to know is to go back and ask, well, what do I want? What do I want in my relationships? What do I want in my health? And what do I want my business and my finances to ultimately look like? See, clearly define that. Know what it is that you want. In other words, focus on the right things. As we started, as I said, the difference between success and failure is focus. I've presented these questions to you because ultimately I want you to begin to focus on the right things, especially now as we're all in this mood of, okay, I need to change something up. I need to do something different. Yes, we all do. I've handed you 8 great questions that will begin that process of you thinking about what it is you have to do and ultimately who it is you have to become to live that life of purpose, that life of passion. In other words, the life of your dreams. So let me just finish with this. There are 3 things, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want you to write these things down. Okay. Number 1, purpose. I know we've talked about it, but I just want you to, number 1, write down purpose. And next to that, I want you to write down, my discipline and my happiness increase when I am driven by my purpose. My discipline and my happiness increase when I am driven by my purpose. Again, my discipline and my happiness increase when I am driven by my purpose. So what is your purpose? The second thing that I want you to write down is this: mindset. Mindset. What are you going to commit to in 2021 to build and maintain your mindset? And the reason I'm asking this is because I believe that side by side with purpose is this idea of mindset, this idea of the way we think, our level of confidence, our belief in ourselves. What are you going to commit to do on a daily basis to build and protect your mindset? What books are you going to read? Who are you going to listen to, or who are you going to watch? Whose messages, whose experiences, whose stories, whose advice, whose counsel will build you up to help you recognize who you are and how amazing you are and what you're capable of, that your creator created you in such a perfect way that the life that you want to live, you can live. But you have to work on that skill set of your mind. What are you going to commit to in 2021 to build and maintain your mindset? Who are the people you're going to associate with? What are the things you're going to participate in? Identify those things. Like this, like the summits, like ESS events, Tony Robbins and others. Who are you going to commit to listen to build and protect your mindset? And then the third thing is this, is the skill of communication. You all know that I believe that our number 1 skill as human beings, as well as real estate agents, because despite what we all think, we are human in real estate, right? It's the skill of communication. So what is your commitment to improve your ability to communicate? Because if you're going to improve your business in 2021, it's going to hinge in large part on your ability to communicate with other human beings. And if you want this business to get easier and more fun and more profitable, increase your number 1 skill, which is your ability to communicate with other human beings. Your listing presentation, your buyer broker presentation, your ability to overcome objections, asking for price reductions, negotiating, work with other, the other agent on the other side who doesn't know what the hell they're doing, right? You being the leader, leading people through a very difficult process to a very successful end. Look, guys and gals, I believe that your number 1 skill in the business of real estate is the listing conversation. And a lot of people are saying, well, but the inventory is so low right now and there are a lot more buyers. Well, the fact is that sellers are 50% of the market. When you look at all the transactions that close, 50% of the people involved in those transactions are sellers. I know that's obvious, but it's true. And the cool thing is this, that if you have the inventory, your job is a whole lot easier. You don't spend countless hours and days showing multiple properties and making multiple offers and not getting them accepted with sellers. The beauty of working with the seller is that you get the opportunity to put the inventory on the shelf, and other people, buyers, agents, sell the inventory for you. Or even better, you find the buyer and you double in the transaction. So I'm just asking you, are you focused on committing to increasing your skill of communicating, especially your listing presentation or listing conversation? Purpose, mindset, and your skill of communication. I want you to really focus on those three things as you move forward into 2021. And equally important, answer those 8 questions and formulate your response, your plan to 2021. And if you'll do these things, I promise you, whatever it is that you say that you want to accomplish, you'll accomplish it, because success simply hinges on our focus, what we focus on and what we do every single day. All right, guys and gals, let's finish it up with some closing affirmations. Thank you for joining me here this morning, and we'll see you next week.